think I have given Christina permission. There we go. Excellent.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome and thank you everybody for participating this evening. My name is Pete Walter. I'm Senior Planner with City of Oregon City Planning Department. And I'm the project manager along with our consultant, 3J Consulting, who's represented tonight by Anais. How do you say that? I want to make that sure that everybody knows how to say that.
Yeah, it's Anais.
Okay. And Christina Winberry. And I'd also like to welcome our newest project advisory team members who've been appointed. Delta Anderson, I believe she's here. And Denise McGriff. Delta is serving in the position of advocate for persons with physical disabilities, and that includes housing. And Denise is one of our city commissioners who's serving in that role, along with Rocky Smith, our commission president, who couldn't be here this evening because he's got a South Fork Water Board meeting, which unfortunately conflicts. But I want everybody to know the meeting's recorded, so the people that couldn't make it this evening will be able to see it after the meeting, and it'll be on the city's project website, uploaded to there. All right. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of the project and what we've done to date, and then I'm going to hand it over to Anais, who's going to go through some of the results that we've heard back from the community so far. So as most of you already know, this is the city's update of the comprehensive plan. We're calling OC2040 because we're looking out to the year 2040. And we're going to be discussing the visioning portion of this project tonight. We're also going to be going over a brief summary of the community outreach activities that we've done so far, and what have we heard from the community in developing a vision. And then we're going to go into a discussion with breakout rooms, and each of the, I think we will probably only have a couple of breakout rooms, but after that we'll report back to the main group, and then we'll go into next steps. Thanks. Next slide. So what are our key objectives? The first objective tonight, not just tonight, but is to develop a 2040 vision for Oregon City, and how we want our city to be and how we want it to function in 2040. And then based off of that vision, we're going to be preparing an update to the city's comprehensive plan using that vision statement as the overarching framework. And our comprehensive plan is a document that helps us prepare for future changes in population and employment. And as the city grows, it helps us guide land use decisions, things like growth management, zoning, and major public investments. So the way the timeline breaks down, basically starting in March of this year, we began the listening process. And from here until April, we will be creating a community vision with 3 more project advisory team meetings dedicated to that. Then based off of that, we'd be starting in on the update based on the vision for the next 7 months, which will take us through to 2022, when we'll be going into a legislative process to adopt the comprehensive plan. And we have a schedule which reflects this timeline on the next slide. Could you change the slide? There we go. Okay. So as you're probably aware, we've had a little bit of delays, and the timeline's been pushed out. I'm going to explain what's behind some of that tonight briefly, but our project is funded through 2 grants, one from the Department of Land Conservation and Development, which is a state agency which governs land use in the state, and then also with the Oregon Department of Transportation through something called a Transportation and Growth Management Grant, or TGM grant, which provides the bulk of our funding. And that funding and scope of work should be in place, and our community our consultants 3J will be under contract within a month or so that we can get right back into this process. Next slide. So basically what we're doing tonight is telling you where have we been and what have we heard, based off of the various outreach methods that we've been able to employ so far. And next slide is going to briefly summarize what those are. So we've had up to 18 community conversations with local groups, and those groups, oh, sorry, was that me? Did I just change that? Okay, I'm looking at a different
I think
slide.
you're okay, Pete.
Okay, because I had PowerPoint on a different screen. Those groups include the Three Rivers Art Guild, Oregon City's Farmers Market Board, the Planning Commission, the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee, our Historic Review Board, Friends of the Ermitanger House, the Oregon City Development Stakeholders Group, Park Place Neighborhood Association, the Clackamas Community College Associated Student Government, the Rivercrest Neighborhood, Black Lives Matter at the rally, and United Oregon City. And so thank you for everybody who's done your community conversations so far and sent me the results of those. Along with that, we have an online survey that's up to over 1,000 responses so far. And we're going to be sharing some of that information with you tonight. We also have done a paper mail out questionnaire in order to target some of our lower income households. We sent a paper questionnaire out to over 4,000 multifamily residents within the urban growth boundary and city limit. And we've got 140 returns on that so far. So I think in total so far, the community conversations encapsulate about 200 people. I don't have complete numbers yet. We also have some interactive posters that we posted at City Hall and downtown. And we have a social media photo board via Instagram that we've been using. On the right of the screen, you can see some of the graphic representation from those outreach efforts with the photo board on the upper left and a photograph of our interactive posters, which are still up and we're still gathering information via those. And bottom there on the screen, we have the Oregon City High School student government who have a class via Zoom, which we did a really great conversation with them last Friday. So that's kind of a brief summary of what we've been doing so far.
Thanks, Pete.
Yeah.
I can take it from here. It looks like we have a slight markup on our PowerPoint. We got really excited and we just wanted to highlight everything that we were doing. Okay, so next slide. I am going to just kind of walk through some of the key themes and ideas that we've been hearing through some of these visioning questions that we've been going out with. But before I do that, Christine, is there a way to undo the markup, or Pete, was that by accident your?
I don't know how that happened. That's beyond my technical capabilities.
No worries.
It's probably under annotate and top where it says view options, could annotate and then eraser. Should erase. There you go.
Thank you, Ray.
Wow,
Thank
nice
you.
one, Ray. Good job.
I've done it before.
Yeah.
Technology, thank you.
Amazing.
So just a quick little refresher about what exactly we were talking about at all of these community conversations and what our online survey is all about. So our key visioning questions are: why did you choose to live or locate your business in Oregon City? What makes Oregon City special today? What about Oregon City would you like to change in the future? And is there anything else you want to share about the future of Oregon City? So in thinking about those 4 questions, next slide, we essentially were able to group those 4 questions into 2 big buckets. So talking about what we love today and then what we want to see in the future. we kind of group these questions into these two buckets as just one way to ease kind of the sifting of the information that we were getting through all of our notes from the community conversations, from all of the online surveys. So this was kind of the first step at creating some buckets of information that we could start sifting through. So next slide. What have we heard? This is just a little snippet of all the work that's been going on behind the scenes, but basically we have collected all of the feedback we've received through, as I had mentioned, the notes to our community conversation, all of the responses we received through our online survey, notes that we were getting from all other sorts of outlets. All of that was coming into one large spreadsheet, and we started reading through all of the comments, of which, I mean, I think at this point we're well over about 1,500 to 2,000 different comments from all of the various outreach activities. And we started reading through that and developing some key themes and key ideas that were coming up as we were going through all of these comments. And then we started the kind of qualitative process of coding each of our comments and responses to some of these key themes. So we'll start with kind of the first thing. This first bucket that I spoke about, that I mentioned, was what we love today. So next slide, please. So the first thing we always love to do is to pull out just a very basic word cloud to get a sense of, okay, what are some of the words that keep popping up, or some of the ideas that keep popping up when folks are talking about what they love in Oregon City today, what makes it special, why they're here, why they've decided to live here. So this is just a kind of a fun, very, very qualitative visual representation of kind of the key things that are coming up with regards to this discussion point. There'll be ample time to for questions and comments, but if you do have anything that you'd like to reflect on or make a comment, please feel free to raise your hand, or either the little hand function, or just by video. I can see you guys. So to take this just one step further, on the next slide, we started taking some key themes and then organizing them in terms of the proportion to which they are kind of reoccurring. So ideas or statements that are more frequent versus less frequent. This is certainly not a science by any means, but rather this is kind of a first blush at what the key themes or the key ideas are that are coming up with regards to what we really love about Oregon City today. So on the left-hand side are some key themes that are a little bit less frequent. And then on the right-hand side are some key themes that are coming up more frequently. So we're hearing things like comments about the Blue Heron Mill site, growing up in Oregon City, access to rural recreation, diversity, family-friendly atmosphere. Once again, this is about what we love about Oregon City today. Next kind of suite of ideas and themes that are coming up are loving Oregon City because they're close to family and friends, the variety and the support of local businesses, pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure, civic amenities. So this is the library, farmers market, kind of civic spaces and facilities. Safety and Oregon City school system. So comments regarding the K-12 system and also Clackamas Community College. The next kind of suite of ideas or themes that are even a little bit more frequent, we mentioned, include the Riverwalk, the Willamette Falls, and just general river access, parks, green space and trails, housing affordability, a sense of community, identity, engagement, Oregon City's proximity to Portland and kind of those big city amenities, jobs and commute. And then finally, more frequent themes include a thriving or revitalized downtown Oregon City, the city's history and historic preservation efforts, and then generally that small town feel with, that small town with more of a rural feel. So these are kind of these ideas that grew out of the comments that we were coding to, essentially. On the next slide, these are just kind of this is just the list of all of those themes, just in a more bulleted list that we can kind of go back and refer to as we discuss a little bit further, but just another way of kind of viewing all of these key themes. And we can certainly move back to this slide. Don't expect anyone to have photographic memory and be able to remember all of this.
Thank you.
And then the next slide is just a little snapshot of some of the comments. So we just kind of pulled out some of the comments, a couple that we felt were rather representative of what we had been reading or hearing. So this is, you know, once again, lots of text here. And our hope is that we'll be able to get over to you a compilation of all of the raw data so that when you, or if you would like, you could yourself kind of comb through all of the comments and the feedback that we were getting and just take a look at what some of those statements were. But this is just kind of a little snippet of what we've been hearing from folks. And I just want to pause there and see if anyone has any immediate reaction or thoughts about kind of any of these ideas that came to light when we are talking about kind of the great attributes of Oregon City today. Based on any PAT
These comments.
Please, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, these comments capture it nicely, I think.
Mm-hmm. When we send out the raw materials, you'll definitely see there's a really wide range and variety of comments and feedback. So I'm sure that will be quite an interesting thing to sift through. But yeah.
Surprised the bottom left comment about how easy it is to walk back and use transit. That's not my impression of Oregon City. I mean, I guess I'm just used to biking and walking Portland, that it just seems like Oregon City doesn't have what Portland has for that, but it's just, I'm surprised by that comment. And then in the previous slide where it said bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure was one of the things they liked about the city, I'm just kind of surprised by that because it doesn't really, has a lot of gaps in the network. Those comments really surprised me.
Christina, would you mind going back a couple slides to just the one where we were looking at the frequency of the themes? Yeah, that's great. Point well taken, Ray. Yeah, absolutely. You know, once again, it's all those are sentiments and perceptions that are rather relative. So I think that you'll see probably in the same breath some folks that agree with you and think that some connections maybe are not nearly as accessible or exist as others might feel. We all have, I guess, various transportation thresholds. Any other thoughts or reflections?
Yeah, I was wondering what exactly did people find that they liked about the Blue Heron Mill site? It's like it's an industrial wasteland.
Yeah, Christina, did you want to comment on kind of what you were reading when it came to the Blue Heron Mill site, what folks were saying about that specifically? You're on mute.
Yes. So the comments were about actually moving forward with the Blue Heron Mill site. But I think why that was kind of like brought out into focus was just a lot of people were talking about the unique history of Oregon City and the aspects that they found unique to living in Oregon City. So they named the elevator, they named the Riverwalk, Blue Heron Mill site, and it was kind of like part of the first two questions of the survey also were, what do you want to strive to preserve and enhance? And I think that's where the Blue Heron Mill piece comes in, is that real like enhancement piece, and like that's an opportunity for the future of Oregon City.
Did anyone mention Oregon City's Native American heritage? I mean, how this was the gathering place for like so many Native groups, and that unique heritage that we have here in our community.
I think that's captured maybe in the history and historic preservation element on the far right-hand side. But yeah, we can certainly dig into that, and you'll be able to also read through and see what kind of comments we got regarding tribal history as well once we have those materials out to you.
Yeah, I will say that as part of the history and historic preservation, there were a fair amount of answers that would like to see more of the Indigenous history within Oregon City's like storytelling of their history. So that definitely was noted in many survey comments.
Nice. Denise, it looks like you have your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to ask if people, since we can't see everybody on the screen and we only have a small column, could you just say your name? Because I don't recognize everybody's voices and I've been having to scroll up and down to see who's talking. So just say your first name or something, that might help.
Sure thing. Thanks, Denise. Ariel, you have your hand up.
Yeah, hi. I was going to ask if there was any mention or how much mention there was of the Kanema neighborhood along the lines of the historic piece.
Oh, sorry, what neighborhood?
The Kanema neighborhood.
I don't know.
That's the neighborhood that's closest to Willamette Falls on the hillside.
Yeah, and it was historically like where the Native Americans had settled.
We can certainly
And who was
dig
that
into some of the-
talking?
This is Ariel.
Okay, thank you, Ariel.
Yeah.
Christina, did you have any reflection or thoughts on, or did you see that neighborhood name come up?
I did, not as frequently as I saw the McLaughlin neighborhood come up, but it was there in some of the responses.
Great. I will move us along. It says that I am muted. Can folks
I can
hear me?
hear you.
You're
Okay.
not.
We can hear you, okay?
Very strange. It said the host muted me, and I'm like, I think I'm the host. All right, I'm going to move us along, and we can just continue having this discussion, but it's always nice to kind of get first blush. So the next bucket of questions refers to what we want to see in the future. So this is always a fairly exciting question. What do folks want to see in Oregon City in 2040? And is there, anything else that you want to share about the future of Oregon City? So those were kind of the two key questions that are grouped here. So once again, we love our visual word cloud to kind of help us understand what was coming about. So I don't know if you want to just take a moment to let your eyes take that in. So we see city and neighborhood, people, restaurants, the paper mill, Willamette Falls, Oregon City, community. Next slide. So similarly to the first set of questions, here is also a set of themes that are coded to all of the comments that we got back. So once again, kind of working from left to right, from less frequent to more frequent. Things we want to see in the future, improved Main Street, transit options, improved public facilities, a small town feel that is well maintained. A little bit more frequent would be improving public safety, environmentally friendly development, activate and connecting to the waterfront, transparent, clear, and engaged local governance, public art, quality cultural events, more housing choice. Even more frequently mentioned, the Blue Heron Mill area, preserved historic character, increased affordable housing. And then finally, the most frequently mentioned themes. So thoughtful planning and growth, traffic parking and alleviation, creating a welcoming and a diverse city, more greenways and expanded parks, a completed Willamette Falls project, so that kind of links back to the improvement of the Blue Heron Mill area, solutions and services for the houseless population, community activities and spaces, bike and pedestrian options, and support for local businesses. So I'll just go to the next slide. And then one more, actually, I just kind of want to put our eyes on just another suite of examples of some of the quotes that we pulled or comments that we pulled to kind of help illustrate a little bit more what those themes are all about. And I guess as we have this up, here, definitely another opportunity if anybody here has any thoughts or reactions or reflections to any of those ideas or statements.
It sounds great.
Make it so.
Make it so.
This
Denise,
is Ray.
were you?
Oh, right.
Sorry, go ahead, Ray.
This is Ray. The chart 2 slides back where it had transit on the left and then the traffic and parking mediation on the right. It kind of seems like I'm surprised at how different, frequency, because transit would alleviate the traffic and parking concerns, unlike the bike and pedestrian option, which is further down on the right side, because at least from my surveys I've done in Oregon State, there's not many people bike or walk here, but transit ridership is more likely. And so I'm kind of surprised that, people think more about traffic and parking alleviation, but don't correlate that with transit options. So just wanted to draw out that disconnect there.
Yeah, that's an astute point, Ray. Sorry, could you go back to that slide? Yeah, as you kind of, if you are able, Ray, to sift through those materials when they come to you, and if you notice anything or are able to kind of put your finger on that disconnect, we can definitely talk about that, or we could, talk about that at the next PAT meeting. Any other reactions or immediate reflections to any of this?
I am Delta, and there's a woman I buy my honey from on Central Point, and eggs when the hens are laying. And she works for the county, and she does, she helps coordinate volunteers for elderly so they can stay in their homes longer. And so it's nice if there are more services like that, the coordinating of volunteers to help seniors be able to stay longer in their homes. That's what just came to mind when I read that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there were comments regarding aging in place with regards to housing specifically. Yeah. Denise?
Yeah, Delta's talking about our friend and neighbor Cheryl and Dan.
Yes.
So those of you that know them, but I wanted to respond to the question, making it so. So those of you that know this cultural reference, I'm going to do this and tell you that we hope to make it happen. So you do this. So those of you that know that, it's going to happen now.
Yay.
But yeah, I was going to make the same comment that Ray made about the, I know that traffic is, from what I hear, just as a neighborhood volunteer, that is a #1 concern, but isn't necessarily tied to bike and pedestrian options. And I think it depends on where you live in Oregon City. You're down in my neighborhood. It's very walkable. We have a very high walk score, but as you get up to some of the other neighborhoods further up the hill, the walk score decreases because you can walk around on the nice sidewalks, but you got nowhere to go. There's no, connections to it. And I was noticing that the other day when I was up at Winco. I went down Myers Road just to see if somebody could walk from one of those developments that's closest to it. And with the speed of the traffic on that portion of Myers Road, even though there's a sidewalk there, it's not very friendly pedestrian. And
No.
tooling down there with your bike or your backpack or your groceries, not so inviting. So, you know, that's probably an area where it would be nice to have a, what do you call it, Pete, a median in the middle to kind of help slow down the traffic, but that's,
Some refuge of some kind.
I noticed that as
Mhm.
well. But again,
Mhm.
from my involvement in Oregon City over the years and being a community volunteer, I will say traffic is a big one. And then I also got a question asked me 2 days ago about why wasn't the Orange Line brought down to Oregon City. And that's a very long story, but the short answer is that we have a community in between Milwaukee and Oregon City, and they were completely opposed to it in the past. So that is, you know, you can't get it down there when you've got an impediment and no support. So there's a lot of reasons why it stopped in Milwaukee. But thank you.
Thank you, Denise.
But
Mike?
also, there wasn't a lot of support for it in Oregon City. I mean, there was some, but Oregon City was very resistant to the Max coming here.
Actually, we weren't. Our recommendation to the North-South Committee, which I was the representative for the staff on the on the Technical Advisory Committee, people in Oregon City did want to see it. It was about where it would terminate. We were trying to find a place where they could do the turnaround like they have at Park Avenue, but there was a lot of support for it.
I mean, I got hundreds of hate mails when I expressed interest in having it from Oregon City Chit Chat. I mean, literally over 100 hate
And this
mails.
is Emma speaking.
Yes.
We got a lot of like, please try to get it to our town.
There's certainly probably a variety of experiences and also reflections on that. But I just wanted to, Mike, you had your hand up.
Yeah, just a question in terms of gathering more input onto these. Were the results from the community survey, not the community survey that was specifically done for OC2040, but the every 2-year citywide community survey, were those results of the open-ended question rolled into these?
Yes, they were, in fact. Thank you for highlighting that. We just received, I know that you as a city just received the results of that community satisfaction survey last week or 2 weeks ago. And for folks that might not know, Pete can probably speak more to this, but there was a citywide community satisfaction survey that goes on every couple of years. But that community satisfaction survey piggybacked on some of the questions or the visioning questions of this process. So there was yet another way that we could kind of capture comments on these key questions. And we were just able to pull in that information into the coding of our work. And I don't know if it's been fully coded out yet, but I will say that we're still in the process of receiving information. So what you're seeing on the screen right now is certainly not final and will be updated once we formally close out our online survey, formally close down our community conversations, etc. But thank you, Mike, for mentioning that and for reminding us to note that source. All right, any other thoughts or reflections before we move along?
I think what's important from my perspective I'm in the planning division, but these desires affects all different departments of the city. And it's important to understand that, you know, we have the Parks Division, we have the Pioneer Community Center, you have the Public Works staff out there maintaining infrastructure and that kind of thing. So it's good to think about who's doing what when we're thinking about. And then a lot of what people want to see is comes out of the private sector as well. That the city doesn't necessarily choose what goes on what corner, you know, that's up to, you know, whether it's one retailer over here or one restaurant over there. What kind of people move into those spaces is somewhat limited, but the economic development department you know, they have a program for providing incentives for businesses. So those are other aspects to this as well.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Please, Emma.
Okay, sure. So my question is kind of related to the little exchange that happened just a minute ago. I'm curious about how we relate the results of OC 2040 to other like public forums in the community that people use in order to relate opinion and ideas about quality of life and their desires, such as Oregon City Chit Chat, which I think is probably the main town hall I'm aware of in our community. Like, how do we compare like what we're hearing in this with sort of like what we see in various social media platforms?
That's a great question. Anise, do you want to tackle it and then I'll chime in?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you are on our PAT to help us connect this process with the community at large. So we will certainly look to you, Emma, and all of our PAT members to make sure that what we're presenting to you is a reflection of what you've been hearing, but then also a reflection of the data and the information that we as a committee have been gathering as well. So I would say that there is certainly a balancing act to be made between the content that we show you through this process, but then also, you know, what you hear through your own groups and organizations and circles and committees and such. But yeah, I mean, you are here to help represent and make sure that this information is well aligned, knowing that we have a really wide variety of backgrounds and expertise and interests on this PAT, which is kind of the amazing part about this process. So yeah, I think I would just say that we want to balance it all out, but there's every opinion and every comment is valid, but it will certainly require just kind of a understanding of the content that we're collecting through this process and comparing it or mirroring it against, you know, what are we hearing elsewhere as well. And another, I guess, one more little thing is, you know, the OC2040 survey is live, and I know it has been shared quite a bit among a variety of different online forums and groups and such. So I mean, you know, please feel free to continue sharing that link out. We are still receiving feedback. And if, you know, there is a particular online forum that you feel like there's folks that really should be speaking up, you know, we're here to collect that information. So Emma, if you see an opportunity to continue pushing this out to folks, we very much encourage that.
Yeah, I wouldn't have anything to add to that other than, you know, online forums, there's a lot of candid statements, right? And we want this process to be candid as well. So nobody should feel like they are limited in what they say when they go to the online survey or when you guys conduct a community conversation. We want it to be as honest and to the point as possible, you know.
All right. There's a couple of questions that are coming in through the chat that are relevant to kind of the discussion about our next steps. So I'm just going to hold questions that are coming in through the chat until we get to that point. So I'm not ignoring the chat. So just letting folks know. Let's move along here. Can you move ahead a couple of slides to our developing a vision statement? And yeah, so here we are. We're going to start on some vision statement work. You may or may not have, or we'll talk a little bit more about this, but we do have a series of PAT meetings in the next couple of months where we're going to be crafting this vision statement based on the information that we're going to be bringing to you. So tonight, next time we meet, and the time after that, there's going to be ample opportunity to start workshopping what are some key themes that we want to have in our vision statement, and then start developing more content for that vision statement. But before we do that, I also just want to give a little run through of what is a vision statement and what do they look like? What do they look like in other cities? you know, it's great to throw around this word, but some people might not exactly know what a vision statement looks like in other parts of the area. So can you scroll or next slide? So essentially, the way that a community-wide vision statement will work or interact with the comprehensive plan update, which is the whole reason we're doing this visioning work, is the vision statement is very, very broad. It's very overarching, and it identifies kind of the basic direction, the what. And as we had mentioned before, the vision statement that we're going to be creating is really going to be the framework for the update to the comprehensive plan, which, as Pete had said, manages a lot of different, manages change over time. So the vision statement is really where we are able to start setting that broad direction for how we might want to manage change. It is very, very easy to think vision wide, but then start talking policy. So it's always kind of difficult to find ourselves at all these different, or to be at the right level. But the vision statement is going to help drive the goal statements, and then that is going to help drive policy. So the goal statements and the policy are really part of the comprehensive plan update process, where the vision statement at the top, that's really speaks to this process specifically. Right, next slide. So I just wanted to show a couple of quick little examples of vision statements and what they look like in other communities that have recently done similar work to what Oregon City is doing. So I certainly didn't have this large enough for you to be able to read through it specifically, but my hope is that after this meeting, we'll be able to compile a PDF of examples of vision statements so that you can kind of peruse and take a look at what they look like elsewhere. But I really more just wanted to show a visualization of vision statements. So for some cities, like the city of Redmond out in Central Oregon, they recently updated their vision, and their vision is 2 pages long, and it is organized around 6 key themes. So around governance, communities, business-friendly culture, a connected transportation system, network of trails and parks, and a commitment to the natural environment. So this is an example of a vision statement that's a couple pages and organized by these key themes. The next slide shows 2 other examples. So the city of Milwaukee also recently updated their vision a couple years ago. That has also been the framework for their new comprehensive plan. You'll see that, so on the left-hand side, that's Milwaukee's vision statement, but it's a little bit different. So it's still a couple of paragraphs, it's 4 paragraphs, but it's really just kind of a half-page statement about the future of Milwaukee. And then on the right side is yet another vision example. And this is maybe a little bit more similar to Redmond's example. This is the vision statement for the city of Sherwood, but this too is kind of organized by 6 key themes. So economy, housing, community and culture, infrastructure, ecosystems and the environment, and then governance. So those are some kind of key themes as well. And under each of those key themes, there's a little kind of paragraph descriptor about what that means for the community in 20 years from now. Any thoughts or reflections on any of these examples? Because essentially what our next step is as a PAT is to kind of take all of this information together and start sketching out, you know, what are some of the key themes that we want to have as part of our vision statement, and how do we want to organize it? So this is kind of the part where I would love to kind of turn it over to the group. I think we had talked about maybe doing breakout groups, but I don't think we're a big enough group right now to really do that. We do have some folks from city staff as well. So I think we're going to be okay just having a discussion in one room. But if you go to the next slide, you know, kind of our question to you tonight, knowing that, you know, the content we presented to you is certainly not finalized, and you as well don't have any of the materials in hand. You haven't been able to go through any of the raw materials or review any of these vision statements. But basically, we just kind of want to know from you, are we on the right track? Does this sound like what you as a PAT member have been hearing in your own discussions, in your own community conversations? And then what are some key elements that you think we should start with for the vision statement? So we are happy to kind of flip back through to those slides where we identified the key themes. And we are certainly not married to how those themes are written per se, but it would be nice to kind of start the conversation about what are some of the key elements we really want to make sure we speak to in the vision statement, and knowing, of course, that it is very, very high level. And if we identify a key theme, we can certainly speak to it in more detail or kind of make connections to other ideas further down the road.
I guess just before everybody jumps in, my idea about a vision statement is not just what we create now, but there's also in 2040 a look back, and we kind of use it as a measurement. How did we do? Did we attain the vision? Where did we fail on or not live up to it in certain areas, and what needs to change as a result of that? But that's not something we're doing with this process. I just kind of want to make sure that that's why a vision statement is also important.
And then Pete, will you remind me, does the city have a current vision statement?
Laura, do we have a current vision statement? I haven't looked in the comp plan. So.
We have, this is Laura Terway. We have a mission. The commission is working on shorter term goals. I'll have to get back to you on that one. Commissioner McGriff, are you aware?
This is Denise. I was just looking at the community satisfaction survey from last year, and you're correct. We just got it, and I have to go pick up my hard copy. But there might be something in the biennial goal statement, and I can see it from where I'm sitting, but it's just out of reach. So you just keep talking. I'll go grab it real quick.
I am looking at our comp plan online now, and what we have in the first introductory chapter is something called statements of principle. And that includes promoting sustainability and sustainable development, containing urban development, promoting redevelopment, protecting natural resources, fostering economic vitality, providing efficient and cost-effective services, ensuring a sense of history and place. Those are in the first 8 to 10 pages of the current comprehensive plan.
Excellent. I think that would be another good, some more good materials to share with our PAT.
Yeah, you can reach the current comp plan from the project website.
I did locate our vision statement for this 2019-2021 biennium, which is to so our vision is to embrace and advance Oregon City's historic role as a regional leader, and the mission below that is to build a dynamic community that leads the state in safety, economic opportunity, livability, and historic significance. So pretty short there.
Excellent. Thanks for that background, Laura.
This is Emma. Can I say something?
Please.
Okay. So it sounds great. I mean, I really love everything I'm hearing. There's just a couple of little things that I think, I mean, I'm not sure exactly how to put it, and I know that you might think it's already included in the language, but we have a really unique opportunity right now with the Chinook, with the Chinook band buying, you know, the old site. This was a really historic, super important for hundreds and hundreds of years gathering site for Native folks. And if like we can do anything to kind of advance that relationship and kind of really acknowledge it as like part of our visioning. I mean, I think that in 20 years, people will look back and think that, you know, that was a good thing to also include in our vision statement.
So I heard the connecting the Willamette Falls Legacy Project with the just tribal history of the Chinook.
This is Stacia Hernandez. I'm actually the Chief of Staff for the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde. it's the historic homelands of our Clackamas people. But
Yes,
yeah, appreciate the comment and the thought.
Ray, please, you had your hand up.
One element that I have not seen much of yet is police issues with specifically, I know national issues about traffic enforcement, especially for bicycle and pedestrian users, people who are like jaywalking, biking the wrong way on the road. So I'm just curious whether that's something that the city is open to discussing about traffic enforcement issues and, policing. So I haven't really seen policing in this discussion yet.
Could you just repeat that? You sort of dropped off like towards the beginning and the end.
Sorry about that. I don't know where my speaker is on this thing, but can you hear me now? Well, okay. So the main thing I'm trying to get across is policing issue with traffic enforcement. I know a lot of cities, I think Minneapolis, Dallas area, and other cities around the country have had police officers shoot and kill pedestrians or cyclists that when they're biking the wrong way on the road or jaywalking. And so I'm curious whether that's something the city's talking about, is policing issues.
Could I try to answer that? This is Denise. I recognize the significance of your question. I will have to tell you that honestly, we don't have that kind of issue in Oregon City, but that the Oregon City Police Department is working with Unite Oregon City and its Chiefs Advisory Committee to embark upon and Heidi's on this call, I believe, a path of discussion and open dialogue about policing in Oregon City. We have received in the past some reports about those particular general issues, but I'm actually very confident and very happy to say that we don't have those types of problems in Oregon City. It's not to say that we couldn't in the future, but I mean, we're hoping we're not, but I think we have a police department engaged and open. They have a liaison to every neighborhood association that's active right now, and their police officers, community liaison police officers are very active in the neighborhoods. And with the new conversations going on with some of the civic groups and community groups, I think that we're on the right path. I will tell you that the entire police department has been through a first module of diversity, equity, inclusion. And that has been a really great start. It's not just the officers, but it's everybody in that entire department. So they are actually a little ahead of the rest of the staff. And I will tell you that is one of the topics that I will be bringing up and discussing at our retreat this weekend. So it is definitely at the top of my radar personally. But I do want to tell you that our police department is open to having the discussions. But for right now, I mean, I'm grateful to say that we don't have those kind of issues here.
Thank you, Denise. Chris, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, just as a real quick aside, on that last point, it did come up in many of my conversations, just a desire to see more police foot patrols and transparency and just a better relationship between the people of Oregon City and the institutions that they rely on. And of course, police are at the forefront of that. So I think people are eager for, personal relationships. It would help to provide a means for that to happen. But the main point that I wanted to bring up actually kind of ties into that, is that one thing that came up in a lot of my surveys that I didn't see on our results here is that there was a lot of imperative to bridge divisions in Oregon City. And, those divisions are, there's a multitude of them. They're cultural, they're across age groups, classes, race, but we also have very strong physical divisions. I mean, we literally have 3 tiers in this city, and each one is a distinct district with their own kind of concerns. And then I was sorry, I'm kind of thinking out loud here. I was looking at the examples of the documents from the other cities, and it's hard to write a document like that at this scope because I mean, at that level of generality, it kind of almost feels boilerplate. But I think we have a unique opportunity to kind of use the same language, but relate it to the fact that this is a shared value and these are shared interests of the different diverse groups. Yeah, and I think that we should just have specific language for that, just to address that kind of one issue that's underlying all the issues.
That's excellent feedback. Thank you, Chris. And yeah, I mean, this is definitely an opportunity to really tailor a vision statement that speaks to really specific things in Oregon City, places and events and things like that. So very much appreciate those comments. And I'm busy typing notes, so this is not, this is all being recorded. Heidi, it looks like you have your hand up.
Hello, this is Heidi. I wanted to actually echo what a lot of people had said about just that feeling of connected and communities, everything, yeah, from the community policing aspect to being familiar with who is in our local government and which stores are, selling this or that, which church is accepting of these people and these people. I coming into Oregon City was very difficult for me there was nowhere for me to go to learn about Oregon City. So I had to do it by trial and error. So just some way to make, yes, just more welcoming, I think would bridge some of those divisions. Because when you know have that information, then you're not guessing.
Thank you, Heidi. That's great. So being familiar with our local government and then just general understanding, learning about Oregon City, what kind of services and opportunities, either volunteer or otherwise, types of businesses available in Oregon City, kind of a Oregon City encyclopedia. Great. Any other thoughts or comments on some key elements here? Mike, please.
Couldn't get my unmute to work, sorry. Just to tag on a little bit to what Chris said, and when I looked at the three examples that you gave, Redmond and Sherwood, and our current one, to a certain degree, there are at least some major priorities listed there. From what I could read of the Milwaukee one, yeah, that does just look like mom and apple pie boilerplate to me. But the other side of that, Chris, and everybody, at least how I see this, this vision statement really does, I mean, this is the really high level view. These are the things that we care about. And I got to be really careful. I want to relate something related to the Planning Commission, but it's not appropriate for me to talk about specific things that have happened. So I got to be real general. Let's say that one of the things that I noticed doesn't seem to be in ours now, or I think it might have been in some of the other cities, but not in ours. Is related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'm thinking specifically about seniors and aging in place and appropriate housing for all ages and abilities. And if we have that in our vision statement and say that we think this is important as a city, then as a planning commission and as a planning commissioner, when we have a proposal for a senior living facility or assisted living facility, whatever it might be, we know from our comprehensive plan that this is something that we want to encourage in our city. And so that becomes kind of our guiding principle as a planning commission. So yeah, in a way, it's a little bit boilerplate. It is definitely very high level, but it's important because we're saying we want these things to happen in our city. And conversely, there are going to be things in there that we don't want to see happen. So that's it.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Emma, you had your hand up.
Sure. So, I'm sorry if I'm taking up too much space. But I did want to make
no problem.
one more. Okay. But I did want to make a couple more comments. One is, when I first moved to Oregon City 10 years ago, I realized that Oregon City was started because of the falls, and it's really our greatest natural resource, and it should really be like the main attraction of our city. I mean, it was at one time the second largest falls by volume in the United States. And I have seen nothing happen with the falls, with the mill site in the last 10 years. And I'm not really seeing anything that's going to convince me that it's going to look any different 20 years from now than it does right now. And I'm not really sure how we can address that, but it just feels so bizarre to me that like the most appealing thing about our city continues to be the most inaccessible thing about our city as well. And I'm really not sure if this is the place to deal with it. There's one other thing I wanted to say. In 2014 or 2015, there was an LGBTQ person who had mental illness who was shot to death right across the street from the Highland Stillhouse. And it was ruled a justified shooting. But it's an example to me of how like we haven't really got it all right yet, like with the police, and how we respond to crisis, especially crisis that involves mental health issues. The person who was involved in the shooting was armed, and it was a justified shooting, but that person also had mental illness and was queer. And I remember that murder, that killing. I will always remember it. And that is going to affect some of how I feel about my community.
Thank you for sharing, Emma. Does anyone else have any additional thoughts about some key ideas or major themes we want to make sure we kind of keep track of as we start developing this?
Yeah.
John, it looks like you have your hand raised.
Thanks. John Lewis, Public Works Director, and I just wanted to chime in a little bit. I live in Oregon City as well, so I kind of feel like this is my one opportunity to influence in this way as well as what I do in my job. But so just looking at these various statements and things and thinking about, there's kind of this foundation that I would assume every city would probably want in their vision statement. And yeah, that can be morphed into an Oregon City flavor, if you will. But I keep kind of starving for, what sets us apart beyond our history. I think Oregon City is well known for its history, so it should continue to build on that. I think this idea that I keep hearing about the falls and the river is also very key and something we need to build on. We've got a couple of rivers, by the way, that front Oregon City, so that's definitely a part of this. But I'm curious if there's, I don't know how you get there either. By looking at all those comments, it seemed like every comment there was a counter to, right? I mean, as you kind of think about, people want less traffic, but they struggle with transit or bikes and peds. They want livable communities until that touches their community. And so I don't really know how you balance that. And I applaud you and the planning department for taking this on. But for me, I kind of feel like we need something. I know of other cities who, strive to be something that everybody in the surrounding community knows that's Oregon City. And maybe that's our history and our culture. But I kind of wonder if there isn't something in the form of the most walkable community or the most, the friendliest community, or I've heard a lot about the most welcoming community, something like that would, would kind of be overarching, and maybe that's the vision piece that I'd be looking for, but something a little bit more, even if it's a tough to attain goal or tough to measure, maybe that's what the vision would, how do you measure who's the friendliest? I don't really know how you do that, but I really like the idea, and I like things like that because they can help your economy to be better. It helps the business environment. If everybody says, man, everybody in Oregon City was just so friendly, and I went there and, whatever, ate at our new, our new carts, or, visited one of our tasting rooms or something like that. And just, we got to be known that way. I think that would be awesome, because all the other things, I mean, whether it's development or, providing services, we're kind of there. We've got a solid foundation in a lot of ways. And just looking at the old, I was also looking at the current comp plan, and a lot of those things we have been successful with. Most of them, I think, we've been successful with. Preserving our natural resource areas. I'm sure someone could argue we could do more with that, but in terms of what the industry standard is, we're doing really well with those kind of things. Providing cost-effective services, I think that's true. We all struggle with that, but because it's more and more expensive to provide those services. But if we could find something that was a little bit more that the community would rally around, that sure would be nice. That's it.
Thank you, John, for that. Appreciated. The new Oregon City tagline, maybe. Kelly and then Chris.
Hi, everybody. Kelly here. One of the things that's been coming out of a lot of conversations that I've been having is, I grew up here in Oregon City. I now have children in Oregon City, and there's not a lot of like athletic fields or things that aren't run by the school district. There's no city fields. There's no skating rink any longer. There's no bowling alley. There's no places for people to go do activities. And that's been something, I know this year is a little off. They probably wouldn't be open and available to everyone right now anyhow, but I think that's something that we're finding with the youth in our community is a lack of fun zones. I don't know what else to call them.
I love it.
I like that. Fun zones. Great. More fun.
Places where they can go and hang out and be active. And I think that's just a thing that we're lacking in this area.
Oregon City, the fun zone.
There you go. But we have lots of outdoor parks and things, but we don't have a lot of indoor activity areas or spaces. Yeah. So
I heard that from the high school student body on Friday when we were talking to them. They were like, we go to we go to Albies and hang out.
Right, Berry Hill. And that's not always a safe place. So
right.
I think it's just something, I kind of tease with some of my business owner friends that if you can make it through this, you're going to be booming, right? Because everyone's going to want to go out and be social and be involved again. So if you have a stash of cash, maybe some ideas for these community centers might be a good time to start putting those plans in place.
Amen.
Thank you, Kelly. Chris, you had your hand up.
Yes, I do. Got another catchy tagline for y'all, which is come see our wicked cool stuff. I think that's what brings people in. And like we do have like all this great historical preservation. We have a lot of feedback about the mill site in particular, but that's one site in a string of really cool sites, from the locks on the other side of the river to the bridge, to the mill site, going up the district. I think if we found a way to tie all those together, in one, deliberate network, like an interpreter trail or something like that, Yeah, I mean, that's definitely what we have already. That's the obvious thing. But then, sorry, that was a different point. The one thing that I wanted to say was that I didn't see anything in the results about wanting to address climate change with this document. And I think it's essential, at the very least, that we express the intent to develop a climate action plan. You know, they certainly can't handle it in this document, I realize, but yeah, I'd say it's important and definitely doable in 20 years, I would hope.
Thank you for those comments, Chris. And just a quick reminder that, you know, the themes that we just presented were definitely a first blush. So we may very well see kind of as we start closing out all of our surveys and the community conversations, some more content coming in. And we certainly, once again, encourage our PAT members to sift through some of those raw comments when you get it and see if there's something that we missed, you know? So yeah, but very much appreciate those comments. Thank you, Chris. Anybody else have anything? We have about 15 more minutes. We do have a couple of things to say regarding next steps, but we're still open for discussion for a couple more minutes here. Denise, it looks like you have your hand raised.
Yes, it's Denise. Emma, I don't know if you were aware, but it's been on the city's website, and there was a recent story on, I don't know if you listened to OPB, but we have a mental health specialist now. The city police department hired her, and they're available 24/7 to help the police department defuse issues. Matter of fact, sometimes that person goes out first before the police does, but I would urge you to check into that and get more information about that.
Nice. Yay. Thank you, Denise, for sharing that information. A trove of knowledge, of course. Does anybody have any other comments or thoughts? Mike?
Sorry if I'm talking too much, but this did come up, in fact, just the other night with the Planning Commission. And again, I'm tagging on to something that Chris said, and that was related to a sustainability action plan. And I think it's important that we get that into the vision statement, and I know that the Planning Commission would support that. But Chris, one of the things that happens, just in case you don't know how all these pieces go together, there are what are called ancillary plans that are referred to in the comprehensive plan, but kind of live on their own. Like we have a transportation system plan that is referred to in our comprehensive plan. We have a water and sewer master plan that's a part of it. We have a parks and recreation master plan, and we could easily have a sustainability action plan that is an ancillary document to the comprehensive plan. And I think we should have that.
Thanks, Mike, for that. Appreciate it. Any last comments before we wrap up to next steps? Kind of what's gonna happen from here on out. All right, so seeing none, I'll just move us along, Christina. Thank you for swapping slides. So next up, so as mentioned, you know, our online survey is still live. I guess, you know, we're curious to know a couple of things from you as a PAT. Are there any remaining community conversations that you know of or would like to host or have before we more officially close this out? We've certainly had these activities live for a long time now, and we're hoping to wrap it up pretty quickly here, especially by the time we meet next, which would be at the end of February. But I would like to know if anybody has any burning forums or groups that they would like to speak to or share the online survey with, and then we can kind of work with you to make sure that that is still live and we can connect or we can get that information before fully closing it out. Denise.
Yes, Denise here. Heidi, has Unite Oregon City hosted one of these?
Yes, Denise, we've done 2 actually.
Okay, perfect, because I was going to say that's a group that I think would be good. The CIC would be another one, but I think they may have done it already.
Yeah,
It's a
we have.
acronym, our Citizen Involvement Committee, which is made up of the representatives of different neighborhood associations in Oregon City. And I wonder if we've done any of there is an ecumenical ministries group in Oregon City. I don't know how active they are, but I've connected up through them through the minister at, I can never get the name right. So let me just use the historic name at Atkinson Memorial. So I know it exists. That might be one.
Oh, that'd be great.
So I'll pass some more of those on to Mr. Walter.
And we can host that via Zoom on the city account if that's easier.
Yeah, at this point, I think it would just be a question of timing and when that when we could fit that in.
I have at least one more discussion to hold. I'm part of the Natural Resources Committee, and we recently had some turnover. And all the new seats, I've reached out to them, and they're interested in putting their heads together. But the soonest we could do that is early February. Too late?
Yeah.
Next week. But
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. What did you say?
I was just saying that it would happen in the next week.
Yeah, that would be excellent. That's great. I think our timeline, I would say let's shoot for the next couple of weeks. If there is anything left on the table that we want to wrap up, by about February 15th, I would say would feel like a more natural break for us to start closing this down.
Gotcha.
I don't know, Pete or Laura, if you have any reflection or thoughts on kind of my proposed timeline there, but we've certainly had things open for a while. We want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to finish things up as they wish, but we also have a lot of work to do now.
I know that I had talked to the Barkley Hills Neighborhood Association, and I got postponed. I got tabled until March 9th. So I might not be able to have a full-blown community conversation with them, but they do want to meet. I could potentially share some of what we've been talking about with them.
Great. Yeah, that sounds good, Pete. Thank you. So that'll happen in early March, and it looks like Chris, you think that the conversation with the NRC might happen in the next week or 2?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
I'm just noting this for our own records. Great. And so in the meantime, we will still have the survey link live. I know someone earlier asked me what the deadline was for that. So we have not landed on one. But I don't know if we like the date of February 15th or if we want to continue keeping it open. I think at one point we do need to close it, but I will kind of defer to Pete and Laura to identify that. We can always follow up as well after this meeting.
Yeah, let's have a discussion about that.
Okay, we'll follow up for sure. But for now, it's still live, so jump on it.
I'm curious as to what ancillary projects like you hope will come out of this. Like the housing forum was great. That was a great idea. Like, do you think you're going to see more things come out of this that will address some of the needs of the communities of concern that have responded to the survey?
I would hope that by the time we get to the point where we're ready to go into public hearings and adopt a plan, there's going to be all kinds of ideas, not just goals and policies, but ideas about how to implement things. And those are the kinds of, things that you can't really develop until you've got your plan mostly in place. But at the same time, action plans or implementation items are certainly something that we're going to be discussing in this process, and whether it takes the form of, having more forums to address particular issues, having committees that address particular issues that we don't currently have, those kinds of things. Sure. I think everything's on the table.
Thanks, Pete. All right, so yeah, just I guess other quick items. There's a couple of some materials that we want to share with you as a committee. We had spoken about it, but would love to get out some examples of some vision statements so you can have your eyes on that. And then as well as the raw data that is coming in through the online survey and the notes from our community conversation. So we will be packaging that information up for you and sending that out within the next week. And then following up on a couple of questions that I know we have lingering in the chat about timeline for the survey. But other than that, we will, continue our monthly PAT meetings, which would mean that we would come back together as a group at the end of February. It looks like we're generally meeting on the last Wednesday of the month. So that would land us squarely on February 27th as the date for our next PAT meeting. So we'll
24th.
Sorry?
I think the 24th.
Oh, you're right. Yes. I don't know where I saw 27. My apologies.
That's all right.
24th. Let's hold that tentatively, but let's aim to meet back as a group around then. Pete will follow up with all of you with those materials and just solidifying that date for the next meeting, where we'll be able to continue having the conversation we had tonight, and then also kind of a refresh and an update to some of the key themes we're hearing once we're able to close all of our engagement activities out. Any last comments or questions for the good of the order? All right.
Okay.
Well, it's 7:30. Thank you all for joining us tonight.
Thank you. You guys are
Thanks.
awesome.
Recorded, so
You guys are amazing. Thank you.
Guys are
Appreciate
awesome.
it.
Pulling it together.
Thank you.
Yeah.
have a great night, everybody.
Good night, all.
Bye.
Take care.
Take care.